Good Friday morning, a feel-good Friday after a successful opening day for both the Mets and the Yankees. Yes, some annoying injury news yesterday in New York sports with Justin Verlander and Julius Randle, but fun watching the games, fun watching the pitch clock, fun watching these two teams win. I know that Boomer at some point today is going to get a little Rangers frustration with the Devils off of his chest, but really today and this morning is about getting our first look at the Mets and Yankees as we go through this very long baseball regular season that hopefully ends in 2 postseason berths. It's a feel-good Friday. Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
Feel good Friday, my ass. I don't feel good after what I watched last night in that first period. And, I know we're going to get to the Mets and Yankees all morning, and it was a great start for Aaron Judge, a great start for Garrett Cole. I'm so happy, for Anthony Volpe and Scherzer, if he doesn't melt down there in the 6th, it was going to be a walk-away win for the Mets. But at least the Mets get a save. All of that stuff, the Rangers, when they play against really good teams, have a problem, and their problem is their first 20 minutes. They sit back, they get tormented, they get forechecked, and they make a lot of mistakes, and then they have to play catch-up, and they're good enough to play catch-up, but I don't know if it's going to be Devils and Rangers. The Devils may catch the Carolina Hurricanes here, so it may be Devils, Islanders, and Canes and Rangers. So that still is on the table, and the Rangers have to play tonight up in Buffalo, so it's a back-to-back for them. But it was a good night for the Devils in the first period for sure. And that Dougie Hamilton's had a comeback season for the ages for them. They're fast, they're quick, they forecheck, and the Rangers, they've got to button their chin straps once the game starts because they're going to get overwhelmed early on. And it's like talking to a bunch of my Ranger fans last night, going, this is like a typical start for the Rangers, whether it be against Florida, whether it be against Carolina, whether it be against the Devils. They get overwhelmed, and Igor's got to stand on his head. The good news is that Igor is standing on his head, and he is playing more like we saw at the end of last year. So I'm not concerned at all about going into the playoffs at this moment. I'm very disappointed that they lost last night, but hats off to the Devils. They won the season series between the two teams, and there were a lot of great hockey players on that ice last night for both teams. And Vanacek made some saves. Rangers didn't have enough shots last night either. It's another thing that's kind of frustrating. They have a lot of guys that want to throw the puck back and forth to each other because they're so skilled. And saying all that, I'll get over it in a couple hours. And I'll be fine.
Hours? I mean, what can we do to get you over it quicker than that?
I don't know. Give me some Casamigos or something.
Do I have any in my office? I don't think so. Well, we can work on that. We could maybe when Gallo gets in here, he'll get you the oatmeal and the Casamigos this morning and just make sure you get a ride home. So I know that the Ranger thing was the Rangers-Devils was the last thing you watched.
That happened last night.
Right,
yes,
exactly. So, you had, I'm sure that you enjoyed watching the Yankees in a tidy 2 hours and 36 minutes.
And the Mets were like 2 hours and 40 minutes.
2 hours and 40 minutes with the Mets, and you enjoyed that. I have to say, though, before the Met game, you find out about the Verlander injury, and I actually have a positive take on the Verlander injury.
Okay.
Believe it or not.
That's interesting. Yes.
Believe it or not, I got a positive take. Well, one, I heard him say that if this were August or September and they were in a pennant race or this were a playoff game, he'd be able to pitch through it. So that, to me, means that it's not that big of a deal. And also, with these guys, if there is a natural break at any point during the season, I think it's a good thing. Now, that didn't work out for Max Scherzer last year in a couple of stints on the IL and that oblique situation that he had, and he ended up spitting a bit in the playoffs. But anytime that these guys get, as long as the Mets are cruising along, which we hope that they are, but as long as they're in the playoff discussion, if you can get these guys, an IL stint, a 15-day IL stint, whatever, for one of them to make sure their innings are down so they're fresher at the end of the season. I don't care if his teres major is a little bulky in April, in March. I want that guy's teres major to be ready to go in October. So I didn't even know what a teres major was, by the way, yesterday. I had to look that up.
Underneath the armpit.
I know. I found that out. It's over here.
I had teres major, like 19 times in my NFL career in summer camp.
And you probably played right through it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but listen, I'm not throwing the ball 100 miles an hour either.
Yeah.
So and he knows his body better than anybody. But welcome to the Mets, Justin Verlander. It's great to have you.
Yeah.
It could have been worse. We could have had Jacob deGrom on the mound yesterday.
I know.
So that could have happened. But look, for the Yankees, you couldn't write a better script. I mean, come on. I mean, Aaron Judge, introduced as the captain, huge ovation, everything else. Everybody loves him. First at bat, boom, home run. Let's go. Here we go.
And by the way, speaking of Casamigos, how about, right behind Monument Park, the big Casamigos signage?
Yeah, I know.
So when you watch that home run, all you're seeing is the Casamigos agave plant in Casamigos. I thought that was absolutely perfect. But yeah, I mean, that's as good as it gets. So that means that we're shooting for, 74 this year, right?
I think so. But but that was just, that was an amazing moment. I mean, there are moments in sports. You could not have started or scripted a game any better for the New York Yankees. First and foremost, Gerrit Cole is up there doing his thing.
Yeah.
And then they come up in the bottom of the first, and here comes Aaron Judge. And this was like everybody waiting for number 62 last year.
Yep.
And all of a sudden he gets up there and just crushes it to center field, and that's the feel-good story of the day as far as I'm concerned. I guess you could say David Robertson, too, getting a save. That was key for the Mets because that was one of their big question marks. And it was answered in one game and one game only. We got a long way to go. And Brandon Nimmo was in the middle of a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's something we talked about yesterday was the pressure of big contracts. And I felt like Aaron Judge had more pressure on him last year than they had this year. But still, signing that big deal, there's going to be added pressure. And Brandon Nimmo was a bigger one for us, and it's just one game, I understand, but those guys came out of the gate flying, both of them. And Brandon Nimmo was the Mets offense essentially yesterday, and he really...
Starling Marte, too. So what a difference he makes when he's in the lineup, man.
No, of course, and that's something that was a big killer for them last year when he went down, getting hit by the pitch. So, yeah, I mean, Nimmo, man, if he can stay healthy and produce the entire year and live up to that, very, very lucrative contract, that's just a huge deal for them. I mean, as we were talking about Jacob deGrom and his terrible start yesterday for the Rangers on opening day, like the one thing you didn't want to see was Brandon Nimmo thriving somewhere else. If he had gone to Colorado and was an all-star, you didn't want to see that. And Steve Cohen didn't want to see that. And Steve Cohen decided to keep him. And, he said it in spring training, Brandon did. He said, I want to be here. I don't want to go to the WBC. There was a big investment in this team. I want to win a World Series. And he played game one. And he backed up that game one.
So, did Vogelback lose weight or not?
Yeah, it's so funny. I wasn't going to bring this up because I was like, should I?
I think he looks a little smaller than he was last year, towards the end of the season.
Yeah, but they made a big deal about him losing weight, and it doesn't look like he lost that much weight.
And to me, the thing about once the season starts,
yeah, it gets worse.
It gets worse.
Yeah, I mean, there was this whole, he had this Instagram post like, oh, man, he looked like he, dropped 25 or 30 pounds. But yesterday, he looked exactly the same to me as he did last year.
I think maybe a little thinner, maybe about a 10-pound loss.
But 10 pounds on a guy like that is like
I don't know,
sneezing.
But maybe that's what he needs, man. You know what I mean? Like
he
maybe
needs
he
to be
needs
that
the weight.
big.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I've heard that before with certain baseball players. If you get too thin, and sometimes you just don't have the same type of power, the same type of feel at the plate, but... I don't know. He went from first to third yesterday. He hustled a little bit.
He did. So let me ask you: we're all wondering how it was going to be.
Yeah.
The pitch clock moved everybody along. Mm-hmm. I like it.
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, the only thing that was a little confusing to me, but I guess if they're after thinking about it, I understand was the Pete Alonso not running back to first base, walking back from second to first, and then Jeff McNeil getting a strike called on him.
Yeah, you can't dog it.
Yeah, I the more I thought, at first I was like, why is Jeff McNeil getting punished? And I'm thinking he's not really, it's really the team that's getting punished, and that would be a loophole. So at first I was like, this is bullcrap. But then I was like, well, hold on, stop for a second, relax, don't have your, initial crazy fan thought process. Because that would have been a loophole. If you allowed the runners to take as much time as they wanted to get back to the bag before the pitch clock started, then that would be a way to manipulate the pitch clock. So that is something that has to happen.
I think in this case also, the umpires are learning too.
Yeah.
I think that, this pitch clock starts as soon as the pitcher gets the ball in his glove.
Right.
And I think it would be interesting, and I don't think that this happened anywhere in spring training, by the way. Not that I know of. And I know it didn't look like it ever happened to the Mets in spring training because Buck Showalter wouldn't have been out there.
I didn't know this was part of the rule. Yeah, I had no idea this was part of the rule.
Well, all right, so these are the things that we all have to get used to, and the baseball players have to get used to. And of course, the umpires have to get used to. So what am I saying? I'm saying that maybe, just maybe, the umpire hold the ball just a little bit and give that guy a chance, no matter who it is, to get back to first base in a situation like what happened yesterday.
Yes, right, absolutely. So, but otherwise, I loved it. And what's funny that when people like criticize, baseball's changing the rules and this and that, and this is not going to be the same game. Well, it won't be the same game as we saw the last 10 years, but it'll be the same game as you saw when baseball was more popular. Back in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. That's what this is. Even Keith said it yesterday. I mean, when he was like, this is what baseball was, when he was playing. It's just you get up there and you start pitching. And there's no messing around. There's no extra time. And I absolutely loved it. And I found myself, I always judge if I'm into something on how much I'm looking down at my phone. And yesterday when I got home and I started watching the Yankee game, I had my phone next to me and not in my hand like I normally do when I'm watching baseball, where I'm looking at my phone, scrolling through whatever, and then occasionally looking up to see what's happening in a baseball game. Phone was on the couch, and I was locked in to see what was going on, watching Garrett Cole deal, who, by the way, was excellent yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, like this is the point about moving this thing along.
Yep.
It's like you have to pay attention. There's very little time to be distracted. I even felt like, how they go to commercial in between the innings.
Yeah.
I even felt like that was fast. I don't know why. Maybe it was just because the game was moving so fast.
Yeah.
I think they have the same amount of commercials.
They do, yeah.
I think it's the same amount of time, but even I felt like that was rushed.
Yeah. Well, not rushed. You felt rushed?
I felt like the whole thing, like you have to get used to it now.
Oh, I loved it.
I've watched very little in spring training. I don't.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, no.
I mean, so now that you're locked in, and it's 2 baseball games, and they both got done under 5 hours combined,
which is
about 5 hours combined.
Yeah, which is great. I mean, 2 hours and 40-something minutes would be a really, really short game last year, and then this year was like you feel like that's even a little bit longer.
The Yankees were 2 hours and 33 minutes, and maybe the Mets were like 2 hours and 40 minutes. Something like that.
Just about 10 minutes more, which is great. I mean, it's going to make me be more interested while watching the game. We watch the games anyway, but it's not going to feel like a chore as much. Sometimes you feel like these long games and it's like 3 hours and 30 minutes and you're like, my God, this feels like a chore getting to the end of this game. And it's not. It's not going to feel like that.
It actually has a hockey game feel to it.
I'm not going to go that far.
Hockey games are about 2 hours and 30 minutes.
No, but I'm saying, the continuous action in a hockey game is
especially the intensity with the hockey game last night.
Completely different.
The fans at the Prudential Center. It was great. It's like it was fans were into it. I know Amy went to the game. Amy Lawrence went to the game.
CBS Sports
so
Radio.
She texted me. She goes, man, this is unbelievable. I said, well, welcome to New York sports intensity. The Devils haven't really been very good since 2012 or 13, whatever it was. And now they got some of the brightest young stars in the NHL. The Rangers are loaded with stars, both older and younger.
Yeah.
Both, they got one of the best goalies in the league. I mean, and you could see just the talent on the ice last night. And that's why they're two of the top 6 teams in the league. You could see it.
Yeah, and speaking of fan intensity, how about the 7 line and Darren from the 7 line down there, and they have their whole 7 line, Queens South, 7 line takes Miami, and then Steve Cohen gets one of those T-shirts and goes down there and hangs out with them.
That's what he should do.
I know, and that's what he did do. I think that was awesome. I mean,
I thought that an owner would do that and recognize that one of their, if not one of the biggest fans, but also one of the biggest groups of fans. It's not just one person. I know it's Darren in the 7 line.
Well, yeah.
But it's not like, I know it's him, but it's really collectively the entire group of people.
No, it is. I'm just saying
which I appreciate as a Met fan. It's not really about one person.
No, it's not.
Now they make it about one person.
Well, he was standing next to Darren. That's why. But Darren's not like a fireman Ed or license plate guy. He's just the guy that organizes all the big groups. Like he doesn't pretend to be the super fan. He pretends to be the guy that gets all the fans together.
Yeah, and
that's what
I know he helps the Mets make money and all that other stuff.
Sure.
And they've been kind to him and his T-shirt business and all that other stuff. But I just think that's exactly what the owner should be doing.
Yeah, will he go there, though, if the Mets are 10 games under 500? Does he go to the next?
He's done that. Yeah, of course they have.
7 line out.
They may not get as many.
Yeah, but
I'm saying
they
take trips down to Philly, to Washington.
I'm not talking about the 7 line. I'm talking about Steve Cohen. Does Steve Cohen
yeah.
join them if the Mets are 10 games under 500? Probably not.
It depends the reason why they're under. If they were under 500 and they were spending $150 million,
yeah.
then you can point to the owner.
Yeah.
If you're under 500 and you're spending $350 million, then you point to the players and the manager.
You are absolutely right. Now, one last thing I have to say. That Max Scherzer has to earn it. He has to earn my trust back after what happened on that Friday night against the Padres in the playoffs. And I know that he was cruising along and that sixth inning was not good. And, Ron Darling does the classic jinx. Did you text Keith, by the way, at the Ron classic jinx yesterday?
No,
in the
I did
sixth
not.
inning?
I did not, no.
Where he goes, all right, so Max is dialed in here. He's given up one run, and he knows that he cannot give up anymore.
Okay.
2-run homer.
Yep.
It was unbelievable. But he's got to earn my trust back. And just things like that yesterday, especially when you're battling with the reigning NL Cy Young Award winner in Sandy Alcantara. The sixth inning annoyed me, even though he was great around that and the bullpen was great. I've just got such this annoyed feeling still with him from that Friday night.
I think you got the agita.
I do, and I want to let it go.
Were you uncomfortable when he got into that situation? Did you feel? I didn't feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, I was uncomfortable. Yes, and I was like, here we go again. When the 2-run homer happened, here we go again.
But the top of the seventh was great. They came right back and answered.
No, you're right.
And
absolutely.
then the bullpen was brilliant.
And they were. So that made me forget about that.
Okay.
But if they had ended up losing that game and him, giving up that lead late in the game, that would have really annoyed me. But yeah, he's got to earn my trust back. And I understand he's trying his hardest in intensity and his career and everything else. To pay him the money that he got paid last year and on this contract, and to start a game one of a playoff series and give the team no chance to win. He's got to come back and be great.
Tom Glavine-esque.
Yeah, right.
The other thing too is to think about. You gave Verlander $86 million.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, he's not even strong. I mean,
yeah, I'm not as for whatever reason I'm not as annoyed at that. I'm just
annoyed at that. You know why I'm annoyed at that? Because when you look at I think Scherzer, Verlander's 3 of the last 4 years. Of course, the 1 year he had the Tommy John. I think he had 28 starts, 34 starts, 34 starts. Okay, we got him after the Tommy John and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Not one start yet. You know what I'm saying?
The season just started. He'll be fine. I hope he's fine.
You're right. I hope Terrace Major thing.
Yeah, Terrace Major. I mean, come on. I was so confused. It was like a minor Terrace Major. I'm like, what is this? Is so confusing.
All I know is in training camp back in the day, man, when we actually had 2 practices. And I think I've said this 1,000 times in this radio program. We would wake up in the morning. There would be dew on the grass. We'd be out there practicing. The balls would get wet. They'd get heavy. And they'd be throwing comebacks and deep cut, crossers and everything, go patterns. And then you come back in the afternoon around 3:30. It's 110 degrees, and your arm is screaming at you.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Come on, we're doing it again." There was we never took off.
There was no minor Terrace Major.
Oh man, listen. I don't even know if they knew what it was back then.
Probably
all I remember is taking my arm and dumping it in like an ice sleeve all the way down in. And it would go all the way down to my shoulder.
Yeah.
And I would just leave it in there until it became completely numb. I mean, every day.
Yeah, had to do it.
So I feel bad for the pitchers, especially when they're making $86 million, and I'm expecting him to get his ass out there.
All right, Boomer and Gio on the Fan and CBS Sports Network, just getting started on this feel-good Friday after opening day in baseball 2023. Jerry Recco's got all the details for you coming up in just a couple of minutes, and don't forget,